We're now going to look at importing supplier opening balances. This can be found in the System Manager module under Import Wizard. When the wizard opens, if we click Next, up the top where it says Table, if we click on the drop down and we're going to pick Supplier. You can see here Supplier opening balances. There is the option at the very end to create template. That will then give you the template of the columns that is required. So the supplier code is either the SUP code from Enterprise, or if you've imported your suppliers with their old account number, which might be an alphanumeric code, then that needs to be that code. We've then got the type, the bill code, which the system will generate. We've then got the invoice date, the due date. If there is no due date, then it will be calculated from the payment terms on the setup on the supplier account. We've then got the supplier's invoice code, an additional reference column. We've then got the total amount and also an exchange rate if you were importing foreign currency. If you are using foreign currency, you are probably going to need some more consultancy than just following these quick start guides. Here's one I prepared earlier. So we can see the supplier code. We've got the type, whether it's an opening invoice or an opening credit. You don't have to have this column on here. If you don't have the column, then what you do need to do, if it's a credit, you will then need to change this amount to a minus. And the same on this one. You don't have to have this column, but the total amount needs to either be a positive or a minus. We can see we've got the date. The due date is going to be calculated based on the terms from my supplier account. I've not put them in on here. We can see the supplier's invoice number. So I'm just going to save that file and I'm going to close. Within this same screen, against the supplier opening balances, we're going to click Browse File. We will then go and find the relevant file, so the supplier opening balances. We'll then click Next, and we've got a Start Importing button just down on the left-hand side. If we click this, we can see it's processing the transactions. Now, even if it says import processing was completed, just check up here that you've not got a message saying anything was aborted. If you have and you click on it, you will then get a window popping up telling you what those errors are. It might be that it can't find the supplier account number because you've typed it in incorrectly. If we OK that, click Next and Finish, we just go to Supplier and we go to the Setup tab and Opening Balance. We can see here we've got a List tab and a History tab. The List tab is if you want to create any opening balances manually and type them in, or the History tab will show you the ones that we've imported. If we click Print and Print Preview, we can see here these are all of the transactions that we've imported. If we just go back to the List tab, if you would prefer to key them in manually, then what you can do is we can pick the supplier, again by typing in the name or the code. We've then got the opening invoice. We've got the date, so I'm going to put that to the 31st of December, and make sure if it is in a different financial year that you change the date. We've then got the supplier's invoice number, the second reference if you want to type that in, and we've then got the total amount. The total gross amount should include any VAT. The VAT will be dealt with on the previous system, so this will just come across as an opening balance. We've then got the payment term on the supplier account, which will calculate the due date. If we save that, that then moves it from that List tab into the history, and we can see our transaction there. What I would recommend once you've done your opening balances is you save this report, and then you can show this to the accountants to prove what figures you brought across to Enterprise. What happens with the transaction when it's imported or once you key it in manually, the system will create a journal. This will credit the creditor's control account in this case, and it will debit the 9999 account. When you bring your trial balance across, that balance needs to go to the 9999 account instead of going to the 2100 account, hopefully bringing that account back to zero. What we do have in the accounting module under chart of account by period, if we pick the layout and pick trial balance, if we just make this window a little bit bigger, we can see here the opening balance control account. Now that figure is going to be made up of what was originally brought in on the inventory control, what was brought in on the creditors. It will also have the debtors and any bank accounts included in there once that is finished. So when your trial balance comes across, that account in effect should come back to zero. If we double click into it, we can see OBI for opening balance invoice. We can see OBS for opening balance supplier. You could, if you wanted, export this out to Excel if you did have a difference and see where the difference is coming from.